Grey's Anatomy, the most iconic binge-worthy drama, is back, along with answers to the biggest cliffhangers. Will Teddy survive? Will Joe and Link finally find happiness together? Meredith returns along with fan faves like Arizona. You can now stream every episode of Grey's ever on Hulu, and new episodes next day. Watch new episodes of Grey's Anatomy Thursdays at 9/8 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
When you hear this, what do you feel? At IMAX, you'll feel transported by our unique sound system and crystal clear images. Like you're running across a desert planet or defending your city from a surprise invasion. With immersive IMAX sound and screens curved to show more, we take fans to the edge of their seats. Get tickets to Dune Part 2 now and experience it in IMAX's exclusive expanded aspect ratio.
Let's party each and every year on Christmas Eve, where the fun and cocktail shrimp don't seem to end. Clark and Ralphie taking turns on the TV screen, laughing, singing, yelling with all of our friends. Well, it's Christmas, and let the parties go spread the holiday cheer.
Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Matt.
You know, when we get into these like March, April, May, June episodes,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what we want to talk about becomes a little bit more difficult, right? Because
Yeah.
we don't want to talk about the stuff that we love. We
Yep.
usually try to save that for November, December. We try to stay away from too much horror stuff because that's usually our entire
October pick, yep.
So then it, you know, and like obviously we can do like a lot of the Christmas rom-coms in February. Like there's like a map
There's a
that
balance.
makes sense.
There's a balance you have to find, listeners.
Yeah,
you have to find like when is the perfect time to cover weird shit.
Weird shit. And I would say like September to February is locked in for the most part.
Yes.
It's March through August is kind of the Wild West.
Yep.
And it's like what inspires us to go with a pick? And sometimes it's like, is there a movie coming out that like ties into something? And then other times it's what's happened this week, which is that I believe it's the 30, no, it's not the 30 year. It might be the 35-year anniversary of Quantum Leap.
Okay.
What is your knowledge of Quantum Leap, or was this the first episode you've ever watched?
My knowledge of Quantum Leap is I know it was a show in the 80s, and I always treated it as, just because of the name, I think, it fell in the same realm of Twilight Zone and Outer Limits to me. So I thought Quantum Leap was more of that. I knew nothing about the show going into it today.
So I've talked about this tape before.
Okay.
There was, and I'm so sad, Dylan. This is a sad story.
We're gonna have a few sad stories on this podcast.
As you've warned me, when I was a kid, I loved science fiction, and my mom happened to read that Fox was going to air this 2-hour special called "Science Fiction Throughout History" from the history of television and radio. And it was this 2-hour special. Listen to the list of hosts and tell me which one feels like it doesn't fit.
Okay.
It was hosted by Carrie Fisher, Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, and The Adventures of Lois and Clark's Dean Cain.
All right.
So it would go through all these different things. Like it would be like, all right, this segment's about nightmare worlds, and it would be like a 15-minute segment just about Twilight Zone, The Prisoner, and The Outer Limits. And then it'd be like about time travel. Like it was all this cool stuff. And Quantum Leap fell into the time travel segment. And they talked about 2 or 3 like very important, impactful episodes of Quantum Leap. And it never left my brain. I have no clue where this tape went. I held on to this tape. I held on to this tape for literally like 35 years.
Yeah.
Like, this was the most precious VHS tape that I owned. I'd watch it all the time. I felt like this is so special. My mom taped this just for me. And now I'm digitizing tapes, and I cannot find this tape. And the only thing I can think of is that I was watching it on the TV DVD, the TV VCR DVD combo set that I used to have. And when I moved out, I didn't eject the tape, and my parents threw that television out with the tape inside of it. No. And now it's just gone forever. Now someone has uploaded it to YouTube, but it's not the same.
Is it? Is there a?
I've watched it on YouTube, but it's not the same as having that like tape that your mom taped specifically for you. Like, there's that emotional attachment to the tape. It's the only VHS tape that went missing.
Reading the names of who hosted it like makes Dean Cain stand out even more. Like when you see the names written down, I'm like, this would be like a really good. What?
I think it was literally because that show just debuted
probably,
a year prior, and they're like, hey, he's going to be famous for years, just like Carrie Fisher.
Oh my God.
Star Trek. But then I also found out that my uncle loved Quantum Leap. Like, it was one of his like top 5 favorite shows of all time. So
I think in my head, I treated this show as older. I thought this show was way older than it actually is.
Yeah, it's 89 to 94 or something.
Yeah.
So in the days of the DVDs being sent to you on Netflix, that was how I watched all of Quantum Leap for the first time.
Okay.
Was that I would get one disc at a time, watch the 5 episodes on the disc, and then ship it and get the next one. And then a couple years ago for Christmas, my uncle bought me the complete series on DVD. And it's like one of those kind of annoying, like, Mill Creek releases where it's like the flimsiest of flimsy boxes, and it's like a double disc sleeve just like in a row inside of it. But whatever, it gets the job done. And this was a bit of a risk. So I was like, all right, the 35-year anniversary of Quantum Leap is coming up. Not that anybody cares, but I care. And I was like, I wonder if they ever did a Christmas episode. And I Googled it and it said that the only Christmas episode was season 3, episode 10, A Little Miracle. And I said, all right, I'm going to pick this, but I'm going to watch it a day or two before we record, just in case I'm like, oh, this is like there's Christmas decorations in the background, but it has no ties to Christmas.
Abort! We need to find something else to watch.
Yeah. But I was pleasantly surprised that this is like a nice little Christmas Carol episode.
Yeah, it is very... Honestly, there's a lot of shows that when they do a Christmas episode, they go this route. I think it's an easy translation to television. But yes, I believe we're going to Scrooge him is what what the line that comes up. We're going to
Scrooge him. So just so you know a little bit about Quantum Leap is the concept of Quantum Leap is that he created this ability to time travel by jumping into the bodies of other people who existed within his lifetime. He can't go any further than when he was born.
Okay.
And he can't go any further in the future than when he inevitably dies.
Okay.
So like he's confined to this one space of like say 80 years. And most of the time when he's leaping into bodies, he's leaping into those bodies to like fix a bad situation and save a life, basically. And like some of them have literally been like he is in the body of a black servant in the deep South and like tries to break segregation.
Oh shit.
And like it gets into like some heavy shit. The heaviest one is that he leaps into the body of him as a child, and he's aware that his brother dies in Vietnam, but he's not supposed to stop that from happening.
Oh fuck, man.
And it's like a really hard to watch like 2-hour episode.
Yeah.
Where like he keeps trying to subtly convince his brother not to enlist or like to draft dodge, and Al is like, dude, he's like, here's what happens when that, like, if he doesn't die, these following things happen to your family that are so much worse. Like you have to let this happen.
Yeah.
And it's just a really, I mean, it is a heavy fucking episode. But what I always thought was cool about Quantum Leap is the end of every episode hints to the next episode.
Okay.
And then they reuse that to begin the next episode. So like the beginning of this episode where he's putting the boxers on our main character, and says like, "Oh boy," as he's like holding the boxers before the theme song kicks in. That's how the episode before this ended.
That's cool. I like that. That's really neat.
Because then you're like, oh man, like you don't know what body he's leaped into just yet. You're just like, okay, this is weird. Something's happening. And then, as we saw in this one, he leaps into another.
You mean I gotta wait until next week to figure out whose underwear that is?
Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
The mystery continues.
Cheryl!
Do you want to know?
Cancel fucking everything!
Do you want to know how Quantum Leap ends?
Yes, I do. I 100% do. And I want to know, do you watch any of the newer version?
I don't.
Okay, I was wondering if there was a connection.
I'm sure it's great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't doubt that it's great. But for me, I just feel like the final, like there's something about this premise that to me feels like such a 19 early 90s design that like
it's goofy, like the concept
the right
itself is
goofy.
goofy as shit.
Yeah.
And I think that even stands up well with the theme song. It is so early 90s, late 80s, goofy, like almost public television-esque theme music to go along with it. Go ahead, tell me.
The theme song is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very close to like Greatest American Hero.
Yeah.
Like that. Look what's happening to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave it myself. So basically what happens at the end of the last episode is he has a chance to leap back into his body in present day.
Okay.
And he's having a conversation with somebody, and they just say something kind of off the cuff about how they can't believe that he's fixed their situation that they thought was unfixable.
Yeah.
And then you see his body glow like he's about to leap. And then it cuts to a title card and it just says, Sam Beckett never returned home.
What the fuck?
So he just spent the rest of his life in this nonstop loop of leaping and saving people, which I think is like crazy.
What a shit ending!
I kind of like that ending.
I don't know, man. Like he had accomplished his goal, and like what? He never gets to be happy himself because he's just stuck fixing other people's problems.
Listen, man. Think about 1993. We needed an ending like that in 1993. All of the popular music was telling us that there's nothing that we can do to fix the world and that we should just die. Like we needed a selfless hero in 93.
We needed Sam. Is that his name? Sam?
Sam.
Yeah,
Sam.
we needed
Sam
Sam to go from place to place and never be happy himself.
Yeah,
as he fixes our problems. He's just Batman.
Yeah, that's all it is. He's just a Batman with actual superpowers.
Oh, God, that's what I want. I want Batman Quantum Leap. And he just goes through the fucking... But, like,
he's just
can
leaping
go
into
back.
the villains' bodies.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, and we got, like, Muppets babies for a minute there. Like young villains.
We'll write all this. We'll DC, look out. Look out, we're coming.
Call us, man.
So... one of the first notes I wrote in, so Sam is in the body of this very rich, like I'm assuming a very Donald Trump-esque type character's body.
Yeah.
He's jumped into the servant of this man.
Yes.
And like the concept is so foreign to me and outside of my comprehension of like having a person whose job is to do nonsense, like pull out my chair and put my napkin on my lap and find the newspaper for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just like, I could never comprehend a world where I am an able-bodied human that needs this service.
It's so fucking odd. Like, how do you get? Yeah. You've got to be raised that way, right? Like, but that's the thing is like it doesn't make sense.
He's not. He came from a poor, humble beginnings with this character.
I think that part in particular is kind of out of this, like, not real. Like, I don't see somebody. I can see someone who grew up in this lavish lifestyle being this way and continuing to be this way. I don't see somebody going this far if you've seen or if you've experienced hardships.
Yeah.
It's
it's an interesting episode for sure.
Yeah.
I always love one of the things that happens in basically every episode that I've always enjoyed is the camera trick of him, because this is before CGI really, of him walking past the mirrors.
Yeah.
And we're seeing Sam Beckett in the forefront, and it's the person whose body he's leaped into in the mirror's reflection.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I know it's a simple trick, but like to get that timing right where they're like perfectly in sync with their movements.
So that was always
really fun.
So this is more of like a fun fact for you. So if you look at like modern video games, reflection in mirrors and even in like puddles is relatively new. Actual reflection, actual ray tracing. In the 90s and early 2000s, to create that really good mirror effect, because there are very good mirror effects in games like Duke Nukem and stuff like that. To create that effect, they would create an entirely different model, and instead of that being a mirror, it's really just a window into another room, and they would build the same model as your character and have him mimicking your movements, so you couldn't go past your character, but that's a different entire room that they would build
insane.
Because they can't process the reflections. So that reminds me of this as well. Just like, I don't know, man, there's something about these cool tricks that made entertainment feel more alive in a sense.
Yeah.
I was talking to Teddy about this because I'm showing The Hobbit in my second period right now because we're reading it. So I'm showing parts of it as we go and some of the differences. And have you ever seen that picture of Ian McKellen on the set of The Hobbit, where he's like sitting at a table and it's all green screen. It is in the Hobbit hole, and it is all green screen. And then you see the picture of him on the set of The Lord of the Rings where they built the entire set out. Yeah. It's so sad. And I hate to sound that way because, like, listen, people got to do what they got to do to make film. Like, it's whatever. I'm never going to be like, down with these advancements in technology, but it is so sad. It's like watching some of that magic disappear, these tricks that people creatively came up with.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
The problem is unfortunately, as two people, I think I'm more terminally online at this point, but as we watch things get kind of worse with like the use of AI, and like we are heading down. Things are getting worse before they get better. Yeah. Like God, I hope things eventually get better. But
things will get better. I think they will, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, if it stops being profitable, then it stops happening.
Yeah.
And it's like stuff like that where there are definitely people, and I know a few of them, who could not care less. They're like, fuck yeah. AI should write the scripts because I've seen too many bad movies and they don't understand anything about like people who think that the writers of Madam Web are the reason why Madam Web sucks.
Yeah.
And if they think that an AI generator ran by the studio head would fix that problem, like they're just going to become severely disappointed when the AI written movies come out as well and are also dog shit.
Yeah. The problems with a Madam Web in general is the fact that you created Madam Web in a universe where Spider-Man doesn't really exist. You have this Spider-Man lore where the main character does not exist. Like, you will never see him in the Venom movies, in Morbius, in fucking Madam Web. Like, it is absolutely insane what we are doing here.
Yeah. Well, That's a whole other subject. But back to this episode of Quantum Leap. So basically, like we said, it's a Christmas Carol concept. He's the servant for this very rich, powerful real estate mogul who's about to tear down a Salvation Army building and replace it with a bunch of like high-end apartments. And Sam gets the idea when he finds out that like this guy came from poor beginnings and actually grew up on the same street that the Salvation Army is at, that he could Christmas carol him, that he could take him to where the Salvation Army area is, make him remember his childhood a little bit, and then throw how great things are at the Salvation Army at him in the present. And then because for some reason this guy can see Al and they don't know why, let him be the ghost of Christmas future and scare the shit out of him.
Does that come up? I feel like I might have missed that. Did we ever find out why he can see Al? Because he can only see Al at certain times, because there's even a moment where he turns around and goes, "Who are you talking to?" When he was really drunk and sad. He was like, "Who are you talking to over there?"
He said something about Al said that because there's like a computer system that they work with.
Yeah.
And he says like, yeah, apparently there was a glitch. They fixed it.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that for the Ghost of Christmas Future thing, he's like, hey,
they unfix that. That seems convenient, right?
Yeah. It's a script in the early 90s, baby. That's just how they do.
Is Al, so explain the whole Al thing to me. Is Al in the real world, like at the normal time, like VRing this shit?
Yeah, Al is a hologram of his friend who built this machine with him.
Okay, but it's not like a computer program talking to him. No. Like there's an actual person.
He's talking to a computer system through his little like walkie-talkie machine that's doing like a diagnostic check into time of like he says like, hey, he's saying that there's what we're doing right now has like a 95% chance of working.
Okay.
Like
that's good, because this concept seems really lonely if you didn't have anyone back from your time.
Yeah. No. He's always there.
Cool.
Something that aged like milk.
Yeah.
Was the Russia conversation. Yeah. When he's like, no, we're not going to go to war to Russia. In fact, they're going to become our allies. And I was like, oof. And they did for a time.
They did. He was not lying. He was not wrong. Now, what I don't understand is like he's still making these slip-ups 3 seasons in of like mentioning weird shit that he shouldn't know.
Yeah.
Again, I know script from the early 90s, like
it's comedy.
It's comedy TV. Like we're supposed to laugh at him. Oh my God, I don't want to put his underwear on because there's a penis near my head.
Well, listen, Dylan, you and I are both very straight men, but I feel like if I just suddenly opened my eyes and a naked man was in front of me and I had to put their underwear on, I'd feel a certain way about it.
I don't know, man. 3 seasons in, I've probably stumbled upon a dick or two.
Yeah, that's true.
In my leaping,
his catchphrase throughout every episode is when he sees where he's at, he always goes, "Oh boy."
Yeah.
He's just always,
I love it.
Like it's almost like a defeated man at that point. Like he's just like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah,
another dick in my face.
Like you would think 3 seasons in, he isn't given up yet. He's gonna like, I don't know, have a better attitude towards this. All right, let's do this. Let's do another one.
Let's get this up there.
Let's fix another problem. Yeah, I forgot the talc. Throw that on the balls. Here's the fucking...
All right, so...
Sorry.
So, this was definitely not an episode where I necessarily cried, but...
No.
I was caught off guard how much I was smiling when he's having his flashbacks to his childhood, and he's, like, talking to his old buddy on the street.
The talk with his old buddy got me. I loved that.
It's so good.
Absolutely love that moment.
It's so good. And then realizing that his best friend from childhood had died, and it was because of him.
Yep.
And he didn't realize it. Like that, and that I thought was very well handled.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, especially when we're thinking of a 90s script, if you're not paying attention, you don't fully connect what happened. Because it's his like yes man is asking him if he's sure about doing this, and he's like, come on, I'm the guy who automated the meat market and changed the industry or whatever. And then it's like 15 minutes later, he's talking to his buddy. He goes, "Yeah, he lost his job at the
Yep,
meat
to the
market when they
automated-
automated
yep.
things."
Fuck, man.
And like that's all it. Like that's it. Like if you miss those two, either one of those two sentences, you might not draw the parallels of what's so heavy in that scene. But it works. I think it works. This is like I'm still gonna put Spirited and Scrooged over this as far as
But it
like
reminded me of
Christmas
those things. Like I think it did it really well. I think it does the modern Christmas Carol tale really well. I really do love the main actor of this episode, not the guy that plays Sam, but the guy that plays Michael Blake, Charles Rocket. I'm gonna bring up that the tragedy.
Because I recognize the name Charles Rocket, and I don't know why. And now that you're telling me that there's a tragic end to Charles Rocket,
so
I'm thinking that might be why I know the name.
There was so Charles Rocket, for people who don't know, and I just kind of learned this morning. He is a comedian from the early 80s and on into the 90s. He was on one season of SNL, 1980 to 1981. And he also played the father in Hocus Pocus.
Oh.
Yeah, so that might be where most of our listeners recognize his face from. Unfortunately, tragically, in 2005, he took his own life. And he was found in the yard of his home in Connecticut. Which was like wild, because I also just finished watching Iron Claw last night. And one of those deaths was also like in somebody's front yard. So I was like, oh, fuck, this is really heavy for the past 2 days. But that's when Al's talking to him and telling him, like, you killed yourself and stuff like that. And I'm like, woof, okay. Because as I was just like researching as I go, Teddy thinks that's fucking crazy that I sit there and I'll be like, I wonder who this is. And I'll like do shit on my phone about the actors as I watch. Do you do that, or do you like, I'm gonna do this after, like, because
no, poor Barb. She made me watch one of her favorite movies called The Last 5 Years, which is a musical with Anna Kendrick.
I love The Last 5 Years.
Yeah, and it was really good, but I couldn't stop myself from like reading about like the original Broadway show and what the inspirations from the Broadway show were.
That was again bringing up what we were watching when we were watching the Iron Claw. I was sitting there and I had the whole Von Erich Wikipedia page opened up on my phone as I'm scrolling down, and I'm like, all right, who's still like around? And I'm like, oh, okay, just Kevin. All right. Where is this going? Are they still together? Oh my God, they are. Like, I need that stuff. I like to know what's going on and what I'm watching. And unfortunately, that is how I discovered Charles Rocket's passing. Yeah. Though he does remind me of, oh God, what is that actor? He played this is such a weird reference. He played the baseball announcer in Angels in the Outfield from 1994. I can't remember.
That's not gonna.
Yeah,
happen.
Never mind. It's just they've got similar faces, but that's who I originally thought it was.
Did you see? Did you see why he was let go from SNL?
Oh, because he said "fuck" on live television.
On live,
like
television?
3 people got fired from him saying "fuck" on live television. It's absolutely insane the difference of world we live in.
Well, and this was the famous year. I'm not sure if you know too much about the 1980 to 1981 season of SNL, but it was almost the last season of SNL.
I do remember things not being as good or not being watched as much.
Basically, what happened was Lorne Michaels stepped down.
Okay.
And NBC went ahead with it and they fired everybody from the first 5 years of SNL and hired their own cast of people, and it did terribly.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the ratings were in the dumpster, and it was basically the only saving grace was Eddie Murphy. Like, Eddie Murphy had been hired at that time. So,
I mean, nothing against Charles Rocket, but like when you look at that story of him getting kicked off SNL, if you're looking on Wikipedia, the only name you really recognize is Eddie Murphy when you're reading that story. So, yeah, that makes sense.
It was Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo were the only people that when Lorne Michaels was brought back to try to save the show, he was like, all right, we're keeping these two. and we're finding a whole new cast of people. And like, even then, it wasn't like an impressive collection.
Yeah.
Like, except for maybe like Brian Doyle Murray sometimes being there as like a Weekend Update anchor. Like, if you look at the next year's cast, it's still like not noteworthy names. And I think that that's also why like people kind of look at like SNL as being kind of really bad in the early part of the 80s, is that it was for like 4 seasons just the Eddie Murphy show.
Yeah.
It was like, he's the star of every single skit. He's the only person that people are coming here to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like in the later 80s into the 90s is when you start getting like Phil Hartman and all of these groundlings coming in. And then it kind of, that's like the real like saving of SNL.
I think,
Eddie Murphy
I feel like
kind of kept it on life support for a couple of years.
I feel like I don't remember. There are not a lot, if any, sketches ingrained in my head, like sketches from like the 70s and the 90s to now. Like, I off the top of my head, I can't even sit here and be like, here are my favorite ones from that decade.
All of them are what I've seen on the Best of Eddie Murphy DVDs.
Yep.
Like, it's stuff like that. A side note, you might be wondering, why haven't they talked that much about Quantum Leap? If you've seen A Christmas Carol, you know the beats of this.
There's nothing really to speak on other than it was fine. Like, it
was perfectly fine.
It was a good episode of Quantum Leap that did the Christmas Carol. I'd rather watch Scrooged. But if I'm,
which like maybe this is the year Scrooge. Maybe Scrooge is what like we do right at the end of October before November is that perfect transition film for us into like the Holly Jolly.
Yeah, I'm for it. I'm down for it
because I love that movie and that has like a nice spooky element to it while still being very much like a Christmas movie I'll watch multiple times throughout November and December.
Yeah. Dude, I will say so doing a little more research as we go here. I was looking at the Quantum Leap IMDb page, and I was like, Scott Bakula. God, that's such a fucking dope name. Bakula sounds like Dracula. And then I scrolled, and I'm like, I'm not caught up on what we do in the shadows, but apparently he makes a cameo as himself, Scott Bakula. And I can only imagine that is the bit that they're doing. Like, that has to be the bit that they're doing. Very excited to watch
what
that.
We do in the shadows is so good.
It's so fucking good. I think I've seen the first 2 seasons. I think that's it though. So, also highly recommend to anyone who's only watched the show, because I know plenty of people who have only watched the show. That movie fucking rips. So,
that movie's so
please
good.
watch that movie if
so
you haven't.
Funny.
And I think if I'm like, this show, Quantum Leap, feels like a good rainy day watch. So I feel like on like a rainy day, throw on some Quantum Leap, friends. This isn't going to be like a yearly watch for me, but I liked it. I enjoyed Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap is one of those shows that really makes me miss when the Sci-Fi Network was the Sci-Fi Network, where it's like, because this would be a show that I'd be like flipping through the channels and be like, oh, Quantum Leap's on. And I'd watch like a couple minutes of it and then move on to the next channel.
Yeah.
Like, I just finally downloaded Pluto TV.
Yeah.
Because I just needed that. I need it to go back to the days where I just flipped through channels and a bunch of random game shows and old TV shows were on.
Yeah. Listen, choice paralysis is fucking real. Like, it really is. And I find myself in it constantly. You just need something you can put on.
Yeah, and there is a choice paralysis if you're, say, logging into Pluto TV looking for something in particular.
Yeah.
But I think the proper way to Pluto TV is just shut off your brain, pretend it's the mid-90s, and just log in and start flipping through the channels until something grabs your attention, and don't worry about what other options there are.
And 9 times, out of 10 for me, it's going to be the Degrassi channel. So.
Yeah. Or, like, listen, there was a point in time where I was at Chris Fafalios' house recording a bunch of One Hit Thunder episodes.
Yeah.
Or no, we were there to record a bunch of episodes. It was me and the manager of Punchline, Jim Legrando. And we got there just before Chris left to do some band practice stuff.
Yeah.
So we were like alone in the house for like 6 hours.
Uh-huh.
And we found the Supermarket Sweep channel. And we just sat on the couch and watched 6 straight hours of Supermarket Sweep.
I always wanted
it was
them
great.
So do you remember how like Nickelodeon used to do that, but with toy stores as like a grand prize thing? I really wanted them to make that a show. I would 100% watch kids just for like 20 minutes go in and grab as many toys as possible.
I gotta check. I don't think it's on Pluto TV, but
Yeah.
I would have loved for Nickelodeon Gas to have come back
Gas
on
was
Pluto
so
TV.
good.
Because it was just old vintage game shows from Nickelodeon. And I would, when I was in college, I would just throw it on and it would be like a 3-hour block of Legends of the Hidden Temple, followed by a 3-hour block of Figure It Out. And I was like, this is exactly what I need in my life.
Hey, man, it's 2024 and we still don't have like an active version of that Nick Arcade. Like, I'm really fucking pissed. Like, I should be able to jump into those fucking games.
It's called VR, baby.
Oh, God, it's not the same.
Well, Dylan.
Yeah.
I want to quantum leap into your arms this Christmas.
I fucking hate you, man. I want to quantum leap into your arms as well, my friend.
Now we won't stop till the big ball drops on New Year's. Happy holiday. Have a great holiday. Have a merry happy holiday.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.